Hey everyone, today we are going to discuss the importance of CO2 in our planted aquarium. Or do we really need CO2 in our planted aquarium or not? In planted aquarium hobby, there's always been a debate regarding the usage of CO2 in your planted tank. If you search internet, you will find highly polarized opinions. One group of people will claim CO2 is absolutely necessary for your planted tank, and another group of people will claim the opposite. Now, what is the truth? If you're a beginner in planted tank hobby, I hope this video will help you in your planted tank venture. Now, if you ask me the question whether you need CO2 in your planted tank or not, my answer will be a bit different. Take a look at this planted tank. This is near about 6 months old planted tank, and the volume of plants that you are seeing, I am able to achieve this growth with the injection of CO2. So if you want to grow plants successfully, definitely CO2 will give a best boost to that. If you ask me the question, my answer will be a bit different. Whether you want to use or inject CO2 in your planted tank, that will depend on what you want to achieve. Take a look at this planted tank. This is a CO2 injected planted tank, and this lush green look is only possible by injecting CO2. Please note here, the plants that you are seeing is relatively slow grower, and when I started this tank 2.5 months ago, I only planted 1/10 portion of existing volume. So you can understand, within a period of 2.5 months, I am able to get this lush green growth with the use of CO2. But does that mean you absolutely require CO2 in your planted tank? Absolutely not. You can have a planted tank without CO2 as well. I myself had various tanks where I had CO2. Again, coming back to your answer, the usage of CO2 in your planted tank will depend on what you want to achieve. I am going to elaborate this section a bit later. Now, over internet, you will come across various tanks where they are not using any CO2 at all, and those tanks will look decent to you as well. Now, if you take a look at those tanks, being a beginner, you might think, okay, if I can achieve this without CO2, then what is the use of having CO2 in my planted tank? And you want to take the route of not injecting CO2 in your planted tank. Now, again, planted tank can be achieved with CO2 and without CO2. Now, how exactly CO2 impacts your plant's growth? I like to give a relative example to you. Let's say you want to achieve a slim, trim and muscular body. What do you need to do to achieve that? You might need to hit gym on regular basis, you might need to have proper diet, and you might need to do a lot of weight training. If you continue these over a good period of time, you will see the impact in your body. But at the other hand side, I do see, or I do have friends who are absolutely slim, trim, and they're not hitting gym on regular basis. They are not very particular about their diet as well, but still they are able to keep their slim, trim and muscular body. So here this is a proper example that you can refer with respect to having CO2 in your planted tank. You can have plants growing in your planted tank without CO2, but there is no guarantee whether they will be growing successfully, or you may not be able to grow all types of plants without having CO2 in your planted tank. Just like that person who didn't hit gym but still maintaining some kind of slim trim muscular body. But at the second side, or at the flip side, if you want to get a muscular body, and the chances of your success will be better if you hit gym, if you maintain proper diet, and if you do weight training. So the same thing applies here in case of planted tank as well. If you use CO2, if you use proper light, if you use proper fertilization, the chances of success is more. And also I like to mention, if you see these green lush look, without CO2 it will be a bit hard to get this look. You might be able to have a planted tank. I'll share a picture of non-CO2 planted tank. So if you take a look at it, this tank belongs to Diana Walstad. Diana Walstad is among the pioneer who has expertise in creating and maintaining non-CO2 injected planted tank. If you take a look at the tank and if you compare it with this tank, you will be able to find the difference. If your expectation is to have a plant at a corner of your home and you don't want to spend too much energy, too much money into that particular tank, then non-CO2 method is your way. Now, if you want to enjoy your plant keeping hobby, if you want to invest and plunge into the beautiful world of planted tank, I will highly recommend you to inject CO2 in your tank. Now again, both methods are both methods are good. You can have CO2 in your tank and you cannot have CO2 in your tank, but that will depend on what you want to achieve. All the competition tank that you see, those are CO2 injected tank, and you can see the results. I don't have to vouch for them. You can just Google IAPLC planted tank and you can see the results. Without CO2, you can never achieve that kind of growth or that kind of look. So now I believe you understood there is no right or wrong answer to the question whether you need CO2 in your planted tank or not. It will depend on what you want to achieve. I hope this short video will become useful to you and will help you in your planted tank venture. So if you really like my content, please feel free to subscribe, hit the like button, and I'll see you in next week. Thank you.